I think disputing the 65 game rule for MVP, not all pros or all defensive team, is dumb because even when the rule wasn't a thing, the only person to win MVP and play less than 65 games in a non-shortened season was Bill Walton. How
Fact.
do y'all feel about this?
That's a fact. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Embiid won in 66 game played. I think my biggest criticism, well, not think, we had this conversation multiple times, but to reiterate what I said, I think the biggest issue I have with the minimum is that player contracts are tied to the minimum. That's really my only issue, is that what happens is the media, they have been put in a situation where they had to deliberate between, who's made all the NBA team, DPOYs, MVPs, and with that, or all defense. And with that, you get a percentage bump of up to 10%. Of or 15% for the super duper super max. You get a percentage bump in your contracts, and that's a lot of pressure to put on the media folks because they don't want that responsibility either. But on the other end as well, players obviously are more incentivized to play more games in order to get the contract. 65 is a lot, and just for context, in 2000, whatever the year before the rule went in place, so this was in 22-23. I believe Kevin Durant played 56 games that season. I had him all NBA that year, and this was prior to the rule actually going into effect. So I think that there's always leeway. There should be leeway with situations where you have this many players that are, I think, because of injuries and freak injuries. Obviously, talking about Wemby, Jokic, Giannis for another season. I think Giannis has made it for the last 8 seasons. Eight.
So what year was this? What year was this that you had KD on the All Pro team?
22-23 when he played 41. He played 41 with the 47 that year with
the Nets, and then went to Phoenix or something.
No, he played with Phoenix. Or what is the other way? Yeah, I think you're right. You're right. It was the Nets, and then he went to Phoenix. I can't remember exactly how many games he played that year, Chill. If you're looking at it,
47 games.
47.
Yeah, 47 games. Sure.
All NBA that year because I thought he was that good. Because if you remember that's the whole secondary story. We don't have to get into that, but I think that the issue is for me is you should not be penalized as a player from what you could earn because of a 65 game minimum. For me, I think it's much more realistic to ask for 60. I think in a situation like that, that is a pretty big difference, by the way, like on the season, 60 and 65. It's not a big on percentage, but it's just easier to be more available for something like that. But I do think this year in particular, the fact that we may be without Jokic, Giannis, Luka, and Wemby for the first team All-NBA, I think that is not the intent of the rule. The intent of the rule is for people like Kawhi Leonard and for others who are load managing, and they wanted players to play games. They wanted them to show up to play game. Giannis doesn't miss games when he's healthy. Jokic obviously does not. Wemby, freak things. That's not up to him. Luka always plays games when he's healthy. I think the idea that we're now penalizing, and this, I'm not saying like this isn't me trying to rewrite history, by the way. Like this is constant chance that I've had. I think it is unfair, and I know Ox, we've had this discussion too. I think it is unfair that if you do get injured, you miss out on financial incentives. More than anything else, as opposed to some of the All-NBA award stuff, if that makes sense.
The part I agree with Swipe on is I don't like that the contracts are tied to awards and accolades. This is the part that I was talking about myself. Like the fact that the Spurs will be able to look at Victor Wembanyama and be like, oh, well, you haven't made an All-NBA team and you didn't win a DPOY award because of games played. Now we're able to, quote unquote, lowball you on a contract instead of being able to pay you the 40+ million that we owe you because you didn't make an All-NBA team or you didn't win DPOY. But my problem isn't the fact that there is now a threshold to to making these teams. My problem is that making that team is tied to the contract. I think I don't care if Wemby plays 10 games this year, right? If the Spurs don't see fit to pay Victor Wembanyama a super max, then let the Spurs be dumb, and there'll be 29 other teams on the phone saying, "Oh yeah, no, we'll pay him. Don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it." I think that's how it should go. I think the teams should be paying these players what they are owed on their specific team. And if you don't value that player to that extent, let that player go somewhere else where he is valued and he can get rightfully played. But again, I don't have a problem. I think those two things are not interconnected. Well, shouldn't be interconnected. They are right now, but I don't think they should.
Penn, do you remember?
This go both ways. I don't think that you shouldn't be exactly what you said, real talk. If I want to pay you that much, I should be able to pay you that much. But I also shouldn't be forced to pay you that much if you make a first team All NBA. If you make a first All NBA team,
that's true.
You know what I'm saying? If you make a first team All NBA and you didn't play, you're not playing enough, and I don't feel like I should pay you that much, then I shouldn't have to. My only thing, Swipe, is that I think the rule has to stay the way it is because we can't determine, like, who are we? We can't determine whether or not a guy is load managing or if he's really hurt. You know what I'm saying? Like for guys like Joel Embiid and Kawhi Leonard, guys that are injured or have conditions that can't play through it, it's that's just what it is. Hey, if you can't work, it doesn't matter why. You know what I'm saying? Come to work. Or don't make the first, second, or third All NBA team. Now, to Real Talk's point, I don't think it should be tied to your contract, but I do feel like guys that show up to work and play 75 games, even if they're a tier below a guy that played 45 games, should be on the first, second, third All NBA team. I don't care who you are. If you're Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, SGA, Jokic. You play 45 games, you play 55, 60 games, and I'm sorry, brother, you had an amazing season, but you didn't play enough. I don't think there's anything wrong with this rule.
Penn, do you remember
being a part of the contracts?
Penn, do you remember when they knocked down the Berlin Wall? So the stuff that you used to be able to do, you now can do it. Like, we don't got to go around the wall to do it now. Now we can do it out in front of everybody. Just so we clear, these contracts that are tied to the media, this has always been going on. It's just in the media now. How do I know that? Because Tim Hardaway had a clause in his contract. You play these amount of games, you end up with a $500,000 bonus. If you make the All-Pro team, if you make the All-Star team, it's an extra $150,000 in your contract. The media just didn't know that. These guys already knew it. These guys know that if I make the All-Star team, which is voted by the fans, or if I make the All-Pro team, which is voted by the fan, or which is voted by the media, if I make the All-League defensive team, which is voted by the media, that's an extra bonus in my contract if I do that. That's always been going on. It's just now going on in public. Everybody now knows about it. These contracts, they're called incentives. They've always been part of that. Now, don't get me wrong, Real Talk. If I'm one of the better players in the game, Luka, Wemby, Jason Tatum, guys like that, you're going to pay me market value despite what the media says. If I'm one of the best players in the game, I'm going to get paid what the market demands, right? But the media has always determined that in terms of incentive, they've always been a part of what I get in terms of money because that's been in my contract. Yo, chill. If you end up making an all-league defensive team, that's an extra $500,000 in your contract if you do that. If we go deep into the playoffs and you win the finals MVP, which is voted by the media, that's an extra $1 million in your contract. Stuff like that. That stuff has always been going on. It's just now in the public. And I think that's the biggest gripe that people like Swiper, for example, has.
Well, but I think the incentives are different. An incentive and
that's
requirement.
You earning an incentive, something you have the ability to do within the rule, like the structure of your contract. And by the way, most players of the upper archetype, they don't have incentives in their contracts. They have guaranteed contracts because there's no reason for them to do that. I've already
really. You don't think Joker has an incentive in his contract? Like if he wins the Finals MVP, you don't think that there's
because remember the
amount of dough in his contract?
But that's why the NBA put the Rose. That's why the Derrick Rose rule got put in place. Because what happens is if you win MVP, you get a bump. Like it's all NBA too, but it's a Derrick Rose clause. You get 35% of the salary cap available if you win an MVP. Right. So I think the issue is that they adjusted for that. But like, did Mike, Karl Malone, did they get more money from their teams if they won MVPs? I'm sure, they could have maybe had like $1 million incentive in there. But even then, like
there's plenty of incentives now. They're called unlikely bonuses and stuff like that. They're put into people's contracts. Unlikely and likely bonuses all count towards the apron restrictions, which is why teams are moving away from adding these types of bonuses. So, you'll have unlikely incentives like if you win MVP, this is a sweetener. right? Like a player who has no chance of winning MVP, like a Contavious Caldwell-Pope, will have a $250,000 kicker in his contract for if he wins MVP, or Jakob Poeltl will have a if you make first team All NBA. Yeah, half the league had to die for you to win first team All NBA, but it's just there. It's just there. So yeah, teams have often put these types of contract incentives in, but when you're talking about All NBA super max bonuses, these are heavy amounts. Like this is a difference of like $20 million, $30 million types of, this is bigger than $250,000 million here.
I do think there's something too, though, this year. Just I think for the sake of the topic, I think nuance is obviously important. This year is a different kind of level of injuries, because I think to Penn's point, he said the other day, we're a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander injury away from like maybe none of the top 5 players available being, available for any of the postseason awards. Now, I don't know when. So right now, I counted it up. Wemby, I believe this year, he's played 21 games. The Spurs have played 33. The Bucks have played 34 games. Giannis has played 20 games. Luka has missed 7 games this year of the 31, I believe, that the Lakers have played. So in terms of just time left on the docket for these players to miss, I mean, we're close to, they're going to be more than likely out and not available for this stuff. So I do think the season has been in particular a little bit more, like I said, the spirit of the rule when it was put in place was to prevent load management. Not to penalize players for being hurt.
This wasn't the plan. No,
that was never why it was put in place. It was. Go ahead.
How do you know?
That word penalized?
Well, because I asked him.
But this wasn't the plan, real talk.
Yeah, I mean, I penalize as in real talk, as in like if you're hurt because of a legitimate injury, like the idea is you want to meet a standard, obviously, but especially like I said with the money stuff, it was never the intent that you would not be paid your money or you would not receive postseason awards if you get like hurt per se and you miss like 64, 63 games, or you play 64, 63 games, as opposed to if you're intentionally, as the team and the player, agreeing to load manage throughout the season. That's a different story. They weren't playing enough, and then what happened is the customer, which is the fans, were suffering the most because they didn't have players they could watch that they were paying tickets for, especially as ticket prices are increasing. We want to make sure that players are more available than they're not. So what I'm saying is penalized as in if you get a legitimate injury like Giannis, Luka, Jokic, whatever. Hey, like you can still get your money. You're still eligible. Go ahead.
You don't think they decided they could kill 2 birds with 1 stone and just not tell everybody that they are trying to penalize people for being injured? Because I think you should be penalized.
Well, I'm saying when I asked about it, I didn't. I'm saying that's not the energy I got, but it could definitely be
right. Of course, I think they're probably better media trained than to tell you that. I think they got a little more sense to know. I'm not going to go out here and say it. But we're also not going to put a clause in there that protects it.
I'm only going to give you some of the story. That's what that sounds like. I'm only going to give you some. I ain't going to give you the whole story.
We're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and we're just going to pretend like it was an accident to hit that bird over there. You know what I mean?
When that was the plan anyway.
Right. I don't, because my thing is I don't. Y'all can say I'm capping for billionaires or whatever. I am. I'm not paying you if you're not playing.
To Swiper's point,
regardless of why you're not playing.
Come on.
We not. Yeah.
Come on.
You don't have to agree with me. That's just the way my mind works.
You don't even agree with yourself. You don't agree with yourself either.
I do agree with myself. You don't work. You don't eat.
But that's not even what we agreed upon when we first started having this discussion. You agree with me that as far as like making an All NBA team because of games played shouldn't determine your contract. Right.
I feel the same. I do feel that way with real talk, but I also feel the way that if you're the team owner, I shouldn't pay you if you don't.
Well, they don't have to pay them. I agree with more.
They don't always pay them.
To
your point, Swiper, you get stuck between a rock and a hard place. But the rule was in place. To your point, Swiper, the rule was in place to make sure that guys played
teams. And
yes, when they played when it was necessary. For example, Penn. Oklahoma City is coming to Miami on January the 17th. They only come down here 1 time. That means that if I'm 12 years, if I got a 12-year-old nephew, I only get 1 opportunity to take him to see Shai, unless they're going to be in the NBA championship. And if you're sitting out in the middle of January for load managing, that throws a monkey wrench in what I'm trying to do, because I've been planning this for 3 months. My nephew loves Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. My nephew loves Steph Curry. You know, my niece loves Anthony Edwards, and he only comes down here once a year. And the fact that I'm able to bring him or her to a game, and this guy isn't playing because they're load managing in the middle of January, I think that's what the rule was in place for.
It happens.
That is what the rule was in place for. But like, I mean, players, I do think that was an overreaction. Like, players aren't just sitting out games just to be like sitting out games for load management, and nothing's wrong with them or anything. Like if a player's not playing, 9 times out of 10, that means there's a legitimate reason why they're not playing. They have a legitimate injury.
Zion told us that I'm good to go. They ain't making me sit. I'm
good.
Or
or the team is making them sit or anything like that. So for me, the requirement of making all NBA and playing those games shouldn't be tied to a contract. So I'm already operating out of that framework for me personally. So when I already have that train of thought, I don't care about a stipulation being on making an all NBA team, because again, as a community, we have been complaining that there is no set criteria to winning any of these awards, winning MVP, being all NBA, being the defensive player of the year, right? There's no checklist to go by. We all complain about that, making the award completely subjective. And so the NBA tries to implement one singular rule that could be, number one, the most basic, and number two, the most universal, and it's still a problem. I don't even know if we can't get past a criteria as simple as games played for an award, then we should honestly all just be quiet about wanting a criteria, because clearly we don't. Well, because that's the one that
I don't think the criteria is subjective itself. I for one, am not a criteria person, just because.
God, you know why Swipe is so passionate about this.
Well, no, because remember, there's no criteria in the NFL. There's no. I didn't grow up where there was like.
Yes, it is in the NFL. Yes, it is, Swiper. Yes,
no,
it's the best player on the best team. That's it.
No, but even then,
the best player on the best team.
Matthew Stafford is not on the best team. He's going to finish at worst second in MVP this year. Drake May is not on the best team in the AFC,
and he's going to win the MVP. Drake May is.
And I'm saying, but he's not on the best team, so obviously he's not best player, best team.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
No, he's not. Like they're the number one seed is. Oh no, you're trolling.
If I'm not mistaken, New England got the number one seed in the AFC right now.
No, Denver does. Denver's number one seed.
It's a fluke number one seed though.
Okay, Ron, just stay out of it. I'm saying Sam Darnold, should Sam Darnold be winning MVP this year? Should he be top 2?
Well, it's interesting because I said that we should have had that conversation last.
No, we shouldn't. He obviously hasn't been as good as the other players.
Okay,
so
well,
you're getting sidebar. All I'm saying is,
no, I'm not.
There's no such thing as, remember, prime example. We're talking about
criteria. That's what we're talking about.
Prime example.
So now we're not getting sidebar.
Michael Vick got this many MVP votes when Tom Brady won, because remember,
what year was that?
That year he walked back onto the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay.
Got them into the playoffs.
Yep.
Was phenomenal through the whole season. Because of the dogfighting thing, got 0 MVP votes.
Sure.
Tom Brady swept the whole thing.
Sure.
Swept the whole thing in 2012.
I thought you was a dog lover, Swiper.
And then I am a dog lover, but again, he went to prison. He paid his penalty. Like, so
he paid his debt for society. Sure.
Like, yeah, if you go to prison and you served your time for years. By the way,
I agree.
When people were screwing people out of housing loans in the numbers of billions and didn't go to jail, but he went to jail fighting dogs. Anyway, moving on. So what I'm saying, even 2012, Peyton Manning. Remember, he had 37 touchdowns that year. The Broncos were the number one seed in the AFC. Yep. Came second. Why? Because Adrian Peterson that year. 2,000 plus rush yards that season. 2,097, I think it did.
Yes, sir. Almost 2,100 yards.
Crazy. But there's never been a criteria. It's story. It's how well you played. And in the NBA, it's the same thing.
It's
not
always
been that.
Well, here's the difference with that, Swiper. So Adrian Peterson, just like Joker, just like Russell Westbrook, those were exceptions. Don't leave out. Adrian Peterson tore his ACL 8 months before that.
And Peyton Manning had a neck injury right before that.
And we saw, but we also saw that Peyton Manning couldn't throw past 40 yards.
But Peyton Manning that next year,
he did throw for 50 touchdowns.
Yeah, no, that was the next year. He threw for 55 that year. But what I'm saying is, chill. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to get lost in the sauce.
No, we're talking
MVP
about
voting
criteria.
and winning All Pro For instance, last season, Lamar Jackson threw for 43 touchdowns with like 3 interceptions and then ran for 800 and something yards on the ground pin. From a basketball standpoint, it was literally an unprecedented season. Had never happened. He was the best thrower and runner at the sport in the world.
They got it wrong.
First team All-Pro, and they gave the MVP to why? Josh Allen.
They got it wrong.
Hadn't won yet, and because he beat both number 1 overall seasons in both conferences. So what I'm saying is, like, we have always had these different reasons why we give people awards.
Always been complained about. That's what I'm saying.
I know, but you can't have a criteria. But
to real talk's point, we have had, like, winning has been the criteria, but there have been exceptions in that winning, right? So with the exception of Joker, with the exception of Russell Westbrook, who had historic seasons.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 67.
Right. In 76, you mean. Russell Westbrook, Jabbar, to your point. Russell Westbrook, I mean, he averaged a triple-double. Nobody had done that since Oscar Robertson did it 50 years ago. And there's not one of us up here at the KD left, and after that team got dismantled after the 16th season, thought that the Oklahoma City Thunder were going to be anything. Russ dragged that team to the playoffs. That's an exception, right? Joker in 21, even though before Jamal Murray tears his knee up, don't forget, they were top 3 seed in the Western Conference. It wasn't like they were always in the middle of the Western Conference.
That was the year before. He didn't play that year.
In 22.
No, 21-22, he didn't play. Michael played 9 games that year because he was injured.
So he doesn't have I'm talking so the year he won the league MVP in 21.
The first one was 21
Yes.
20. Jamal Murray played 48 games. The next year he played 0 games. That was the ACL year.
And that's what I'm talking. So in 21, that year Joker won the league, his first one.
Yeah.
That was the year that Jamal Murray tore up his ACL. Is that fair? Is that correct?
Yeah, they played 72 game season and beat
That's what I'm talking
51
about.
games
He
that
tore his
year.
ACL. He tore his ACL that year. They were a top 3 seed before he tore his ACL. They were rolling.
Well, they finished as a top 3 seed that year.
And then the next year, right?
Yeah.
And then the next year, he loses Jamal Murray. And in addition to losing Jamal Murray, he loses MPJ barely a month into the season. And he still drags that team. That's an exception, considering everything that he did. But everybody else, with the exception of both those 2 guys, everybody else, Moses Malone from 1981 on, has hosted a playoff series. So winning has always been the criteria. You've had 3 exceptions in like the last 50 years, no doubt about it. Now, to your point, Real Talk, there's times when we get confused. Well, is it the best player in the league? Why? Because the best player does actually win the league MVP. Is it the best player on the best team in the league? Well, sometimes the best player on the best team wins the league MVP.
But wouldn't that be a shift in the? I think that if anything, that is the breakaway from I think what the traditional criteria would have been. Like we had a conversation before. I don't think Barkley should have won over Jordan in '93, and I do not think that Malone should have won over Jordan in 1998. But Malone had a better record. Barkley had a better record. They had better seasons in the regular season that year, so that aided them. But they weren't better than Jordan in any of those seasons. I think LeBron should have walked away winning it in 2011. And if anything, then after that was like Dwight Howard. Derrick Rose won that because they beat Miami 3 times in the regular season, and then he carried that team into the playoffs at 22 years old, and so he had the narrative and stuff behind him. But he wasn't like a top 5 player in the league that season. He wasn't. But I think he won in part because of the narrative. Now, the Real Talk's point about criteria, I guess the only thing I would say, Real Talk, is I do find it hard to stabilize a criteria for these kind of awards because, like, now if you want to say like, hey, you got to be at least a top 3 seed, you got to be averaging, top 10 in scoring, top 10 in rebound, top 10 in assists, top 10 in advanced stats. I mean, if you want to put something like that in, then I guess, you could pull from that. Like, that wouldn't be like an, illegitimate thing to do. Like there's like 5 categories. You got to at least be top 10 in like some of those things. But even then, I feel like that would take away from some of the actual like storylines and impact stuff of what makes you like an MVP player on any given season, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What I'm saying as far as the criteria, what I'm saying is when these selections happen and people don't agree with them, a lot of people get to talking about how, well, there's no criteria to these lists and, it's just based off other people's opinion and, yada, yada, yada. And what I'm saying is, well, okay, if we can't even agree on games played as one of the criteria, then in all honesty, what I'm saying, Swipe, is what I'm saying is, then no, we really don't want a criteria.
That's always what I'm been saying. A criteria, though. Games played has always been a criteria. Now it's a hard stop, right? Like,
there's been some 41 games
Scottie
played.
Pippen made the all defensive team. He played 47 games.
Yeah, I mean
that's all right though for me though. Real talk, like respectfully,
is it possible to be?
Bro, KD was crazy the year he went.
Rudy Gobert won the Defensive Player of the Year, and he played 55 games. That's barely more than half.
He
the
was
season.
also that good.
Yeah, he was, but he barely played more than half the season.
What did Jaren Jackson Jr. play? Penn the year he won. How many games did he play? Do you remember? What did like 62 or something like that? I don't want to.
Yeah, it was something like that. Like I just think because the gap between, like I think the gap between the top 15 is bigger than the gap between the top 200. You know, like the gap becomes larger at the top. So when you start talking about the top 5, 6 best players in the world, their 60 games are way more worth a lot more than Mikal Bridges' like 80 games. You know what I mean? So it's like if Anthony Edwards misses 65 games by 2 games, right? He's still way more impactful than Franz Wagner. He's still way more impactful than Josh Hart or Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby or any one of those players, right? So that's kind of where it comes down to, like, it's arbitrary. I think with the MVP, though, games played has always been a huge.
Ox, don't think better player, Ox. Just think impactful. Like, because I see your face.
Better player too. Come on.
I'm thinking impact. That's what I'm thinking.
Mention OG Anunoby or Kawhi, and this fool ready to rip the posters off the wall.
I mean, just because.
Yeah, because it's not my fault. I don't know, boy.
Well, we do, Ox. I mean, I watched your man last night, and he was impactful. I ain't gonna argue that point. But there, to Penn's point, I mean, take OG Anunoby off that Nick unit. I mean, I think that they would still. I think they'd be okay. The impact would be felt. I'm not gonna argue that point, Ox. I think the impact would be felt. But take Cade off that unit. The impact that he has on that unit is way different than what OG Anunoby has with the New York Knicks. And I think that's all Penn is saying.
I blame NBA 2K for real.
Chill,
that's what I do. I blame NBA 2K because they got all y'all convinced like there's like 30, 90 plus players in the league. There really aren't.
It's not.
Like I kind of miss the days of live where you would turn it on and you got like a 58 starter and you started you're like, damn, that guy is shit.
Then aren't we talking out of both sides of our mouth then about this generation of basketball? Because also all I hear is how, oh my goodness, the league has never been more talented. All of these players are so good. The league is so deep.
Yeah.
Yada, yada, yada. And now we're saying we can't even get to like 25 to 30 really good basketball players in the NBA. I
didn't say that though.
I didn't say that. 90 overall doesn't mean like great. Like 90 overall means amazing. Like it's beyond great. It's like OG Anunoby a really good basketball player. Josh Hart's a really good basketball player. These guys
they like 73s.
Like
OG's not a 90
like,
though.
OG's not a 90. Well, who's a 90? Alperen Şengün is a 90, right? I'm assuming like Alperen Şengün, like these guys. These guys are not 90s. I don't want to really get into the weeds.
Let me look.
Yeah. We don't have to be.
I don't know much about.
Bro, I'm firing the system and look at it real quick.
What I do know is that the media votes, right? The media votes on the league MVP, right? The media votes. The media votes on the league MVP. The media votes on the all-pro team. And it's tied to a requirement, to Real Talk's point. These are how many games you have to play in order to be eligible to do this. I don't have a problem with that at all, to be quite honest with you. Now, as far as the money goes, that's always been a thing. It's just now a thing with the media out front. My biggest issue, Swiper, is the media, they have agendas. Did we not see this in the early 2000s when Kobe Bryant got into what he got into in Colorado? Automatically, the media, their agenda on him, despite how good he was as a basketball player and everything that he did, now the media's agenda on him, he's an awful guy. He shouldn't be one of the faces of the league. We're never going to vote him for league MVP, especially at that point. Like, he shouldn't even be in the conversation.
Well,
when in reality, he should be.
I don't think
he 100% should be.
I don't think
the media has an
agenda MVP anyway, though. I mean, I feel like that's a. We haven't had a situation where a superstar where they're in an active like felony charge since in the last 50 years. So like I feel like that's a different level altogether.
Right? Yeah, but we all know.
But you know what we did.
I don't know. We all know anything. I don't know what that means.
We all can't think of another year who should have won MVP.
What year? What year was this? 05?
He talking about
05, 06, 07, 08. We all know who
He
should have
won
won
in
MVP all of them years.
He did win it in 08.
But because he deserved to win it in 08.
The point that they did, and to be honest with you, Ron, they did everything that they could to try to get that award to Chris Paul. They was doing everything.
But chill, don't they teach you when you young, especially you know when you're young, even in high school, when you playing at a high level, you play at you're playing at one of the top notch programs. They teach you at a young age that you live in a fishbowl. And you know what I'm saying? You gotta watch your ass. You're gonna pay for you're gonna pay for it. You know what I'm saying? Right or wrong, you put yourself in a situation where it could be looked at either way. Obviously, I don't know all the details, so I'm just saying whatever happens, you live in a fishbowl. You have to watch your ass, or you're gonna pay for it one way or another. You live in a world of public perception. That's just the way the cookie crumbles, y'all.
It's the panel. Religion get built on cam. Where the check throw smoke and the host go ham. You ain't never seen hoops all hit the raw. Every take got weight, every night we drop. Yeah, this that barbershop. Courtside, worldwide tone. Welcome to the only show that really feel like numbers jumping like the score.